Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's featured Reddit stories are from MaliciousCompliance. Story 1 today is by 0x Leet Dude. You want it fast? Fine, but don't cry when it blows up in your face. I work at a big retail chain where the stockroom is the Wild West and chaos is the norm. We recently got a new supervisor, Sarah, who seems to think she's running the Navy SEALs or something. She's obsessed with speed, constantly on us about how we need to get things done faster. Doesn't matter if it's done right, as long as it's done fast. So one day, during peak restock time when we're drowning in boxes, Sarah storms in with her clipboard and her best "I'm in charge" face. She corners me while I'm halfway through a massive inventory check and says, "You're taking way too long with these. Just get through them quickly. We don't have time to check every single item." I try to explain that rushing inventory checks is a bad idea, but she cuts me off with a condescending smile. "If you can't speed this up, maybe this job isn't the right fit for you," she says, all smug like she just dropped a bombshell. "All right, Sarah, you want speed? Let's see how fast things can spiral out of control." So I take her words to heart and decide to follow her instructions exactly. The next day, I'm scheduled for another inventory check. Instead of my usual process where I count everything carefully, I decide to play Sarah's game. I glance at the shelves and make up numbers that seem about right. I don't even bother opening the boxes to check if what's inside matches the labels. I fly through the whole process, marking items off like I'm speedrunning a video game. What usually takes me 2 hours, I finish in just 20 minutes. Sarah sees me finish up and I can see her eyes light up. She walks over, grinning ear to ear. "See, that wasn't so hard, was it? If you keep this up, you might even get a little bonus this month," she says, patting herself on the back for her brilliant leadership skills. Fast forward a week and the store manager, Mike, calls an emergency meeting. The inventory reports have come back and they're a total disaster. According to the report, we're missing thousands of dollars worth of products. It looks like we either lost half the stock or we're running some underground black market. Mike's pissed. Customers are complaining about the out-of-stock items and the regional manager is breathing down his neck. Mike turns to Sarah and asks her to explain how this could have happened. Sarah, trying to save face, immediately points at the team and says they must have messed up the counts. They weren't thorough enough. She's throwing us under the bus without a second thought. This is where I decide to strike. I raise my hand and say, "Actually, I did exactly what Sarah told us to do. She said to skip checking the items and just get it done as quickly as possible. I was just following orders." You could hear a pin drop. Mike slowly turns to Sarah, his expression going from confused to furious. "Is this true?" he asks, his eyes narrowing at her. Sarah's stammering now, trying to backtrack. "Well, I didn't mean to skip it entirely. I just meant speed it up." But it's too late. The damage is done. Mike's already fuming. "So you decided to cut corners on the one thing that affects our bottom line? You do realize we have to do a full recount now because of this mess, right?" And that's exactly what happens. The next day, Sarah and a few unlucky team members spent 12 hours redoing the entire inventory check from scratch. The rest of us get to enjoy watching them sweat it out while we handle our regular duties. It's glorious. As they're counting, I make sure to walk by every so often and ask, "Need any help speeding things up? I could skip a few checks for you if that helps." The look on Sarah's face every time is pure rage mixed with embarrassment. She can't say anything because she knows I'm just doing what she asked for. By the end of it, we've found thousands of dollars in discrepancies. Turns out rushing through inventory checks leaves a lot of room for errors. Who knew? The regional manager isn't happy and Sarah ends up getting a formal warning. She stops harping on us about speed after that and even tries to be extra nice when I'm around. Guess she realized that maybe, just maybe, some tasks shouldn't be rushed. The best part, a couple weeks later, I got a small bonus for outstanding attention to detail in helping to fix the inventory mess. Oh, the irony. Sarah couldn't even look me in the eye when I got the bonus slip. And every time she walks by me now, I just give her a friendly smile and say, "Don't worry, boss. I'm working as fast as you want." I've never had to do a full inventory of a store before, and I'm assuming that would be a massive amount of pain. I did work at a small shop before, and I had to restock some shelves pretty frequently, check the dates, throw out anything that was near or past expiration date, and restock the shelves, but I never had to do a full inventory, and Can't begin to imagine how much pain that would be. I would want to go really slowly. For some reason, that seems to happen with new managers all the time. In most of these stories, it's new managers that want to impress people by cutting corners or speeding things up. And it almost always backfires. Realistically, we just don't hear about the ones that aren't backfiring. Our next story is by Nage 2020. Treat the fire drill as if it was real. My great uncle passed away at 97, and I heard this great story of malicious compliance at his memorial service today. He worked for over 50 years at the same confectionery factory, and for most of that time he was a boiler room attendant. This was just after World War II, and at the time most of the machines and processes were powered by steam, even the heating. The steam was generated by massive boilers, and it was his job to monitor the boilers and make sure nothing went wrong. These boilers could potentially explode, causing great damage. By law, the boiler had to be attended at all times, and there were shifts that watched them around the clock even when the factory was closed. They took so long to heat up that it was easier and cheaper to leave them running at night. After about 10 years of no incidents, the company hired a leading hand who would also act as a safety officer. He had been a sergeant in the army, and he took his job quite seriously, being quite the disciplinarian. He instituted a multitude of new procedures, some warranted, some just to establish control. The first time he wanted to conduct a fire drill, he went around telling the staff that when they heard the alarm, they had to exit the building in an orderly fashion. He got to the boiler room, and it was my great-uncle on duty that day. My uncle informed him he would not be able to evacuate with everyone else and had to stay with the boiler. The safety officer didn't give him time to explain why. He just blatantly informed him that he was to treat the fire drill as if it was a real fire. No exceptions. When the fire bell finally rang, my uncle did exactly what he was told to do. He turned off the gas to the boilers, vented all the built-up steam, purged the water, and joined everyone outside. At the evacuation point, they were doing the head count when the production manager spotted my uncle and immediately approached him and asked what he was doing away from the boiler. He said he was participating in the fire drill as instructed, but not to worry, as he had shut the boiler down completely. The color immediately drained from the manager's face. He was asked how long it would take to bring the boilers back online. Apparently, it would take hours alone just to fill the boilers with water and heat them up. The big issue was that because they had done an emergency purge, they were required to inspect every pipe, joint, and connection for damage before to make sure it was safe to start to reheat. The other boiler men were called in and they got paid double to work through the night to get the boiler ready for the next day. Production staff all got sent home, but still got paid for the day as it wasn't their fault the factory couldn't run. It cost them a day's production as well. Safety officer did keep his job, but for the next 40 years the boiler staff were all exempt from the drills. This man was in control of so much power at this place, literally all the power. And you don't mess with the people who are in control of that much power because they have procedures to follow in a fire drill. And the guy did say to him, treat it exactly as if it's a fire drill. On the plus side, they did prove that the guy knows the procedure for a real fire in the future, so you know that you're safe. That guy was brilliant. Our last story today is by Commercial Gate, 4016. Lady asked me to recount her items. This is kind of a short one, but here we go. I worked at a thrift store, and sometimes we get really rude customers. The other day I had this lady who, after scanning all her items, insisted that I had scanned something twice, and to recount everything. I assured her that I had not scanned anything twice, but that her total was correct. But she demanded that I count every item and compare it with the number of items on the computer. So I glanced behind her, and there wasn't a line, so I thought, fine, you want me to count all your items? I'll count all your items. So I made a big show of voiding her entire transaction, taking each item out of the bag, and rescanning it. Lo and behold, I had actually forgotten to scan an item. So with a huge smile on my face, I say, I'm so sorry, ma'am. It looks like you were right. Your new total is however many dollars more than before. I was so nice throughout the whole transaction that she didn't even get mad, just paid for her items and left. Karma is real. The better thing for this lady to have done would be to check the screen herself or ask for a receipt before the transaction completes so that she can see that it's not on there twice. Then she could check it herself. But since there was no one else in line, why not? Why not humor her? The customer's always right. right? Our stories for today have come to a close. Until we meet again, have a lovely day.